Count 4 is molest. From the brother's vantage point, count 5 also the brother saying he saw molest. Count 6 is attempted, and then you go to the 4 alcohol-related counts. Those are giving a child alcohol with the intent to molest. Keep in mind, if count 2 comes back not guilty, there's a very good chance the defense could run the table here. If count 1 comes back guilty, there's a very good chance the prosecution could run the table here. Now keep in mind, there are 4 additional findings on the alcohol charges. If this jury decided for some reason that Michael Jackson needs to be punished in some capacity, they could consider a lesser charge on the alcohol, which is simply distributing alcohol to a minor, okay? That is not a prisonable offense, which means that if Michael Jackson is not convicted of molestation, that he would likely not go to prison, even if he goes down on the lesser alcohol counts. What we expect to happen when the verdict comes in, Michael Jackson will be, if found guilty, remanded to the court. He will be then taken into custody, we believe, downstairs in the holding cell for a while, and then let out back. We talked about the barricades. The media will be allowed to gather back there for Michael Jackson being put into a van. We still do not know if Michael Jackson will be caravanned or cortéged down to Santa Barbara County Jail or flown down there by helicopter. But if he's found guilty, his first stop will be the Santa Barbara County Jail, where he'll stay until sentencing. And again, Shep, the clock is now ticking. It is less than 1 hour. We are supposed to find out the fate of Michael Jackson.
Trace Gallagher live for us on scene. Trace, thanks. Of course, what we know can happen here is the following. He can be set free to come out and hold a news conference and explain to all of us what the last years have been like. The other side of this coin is up to 20 years in prison for Michael Jackson. Trace, it's hard to even imagine a situation where the biggest star ever on this planet to be charged with anything even remotely close to this severe could end up the rest of his life in prison.
It really is, Shepard, and you have to remember that these charges were brought back in 1994 as well, and that case fell apart because the case settled out of court for some $20 million with Jordy Chandler, and the prosecution lost its star witness, so therefore that one went away. And Tom Sneddon has been, of course, some say, after Jackson, watching Jackson now for the better part of 10 years to bring these charges. Now, a lot of people said the family in this case really had reasonable doubt written all over them. Remember, Tom Mesereau in his closing argument pointed out a number of times where there were inconsistent statements from the mother, the brother, the accuser himself, and the sister in their grand jury testimony, in what they told sheriff's deputies and what they told this jury. So for the prosecution, it really was a tall hurdle to go against the reasonable doubt. For the defense, the key thing was to tell this jury, look, if you don't believe the family, you cannot believe that Michael Jackson should go on. We're being told now, Shep, the verdict will be read at 1:30, and to give you an idea how that's going to work, it'll be read by the court clerk live on audio. Her name is Lorna Fry. She'll read count 1 through 10, and we'll hear it live. There's no video inside, so again, we'll go over the counts with graphics. It'll be read live. It may take a while because, again, there are some special circumstances. I want to do real quickly is bring in Jim Hammer here to talk about what it is exactly that's going to happen when these things are read, Jim. It's convoluted. It becomes very complex. How is it going to be read?
Well, there are 10 counts, Trace, and the most complex account is that first count, conspiracy. Jackson's alleged to have conspired to commit 3 different crimes. That very well could have taken 3 or 4 days, frankly, for the jury to walk through it. If, as you pointed out, the prosecution wins that first count, and I think the odds are way against that, they could literally run the entire board and win all 10 counts. If they don't, the next most dramatic moment is count 2. That's the first act of molestation, which the accuser himself testified to, and most dramatically in that videotape interview with the police just a couple of months after he left Neverland. If the prosecution wins that one, it's good for the prosecution. If they lose, their last chance really is those last alcohol counts or even the lesser included offenses, which are just misdemeanors.
And just keep in mind, Shepard, just so we know, if Michael Jackson is convicted on all counts, we're talking about 18 years in Corcoran State Prison. It's in King County, California, about 155 miles from where we are right here. He's in a sensitive needs area, which means that he would be housed with people like Richard I take that back, with people like transvestites, people who need protection from other inmates. Charles Manson was at one time in this area. He has since been moved out of that area. That's where Michael Jackson would be housed for what could be up to 18 years. It is very important to note that if Michael Jackson walks free, if the defense runs the table and Michael Jackson is acquitted, we are being told that Michael Jackson himself will come out here and make a statement and then go back to Neverland. We should also point out on the guilty side of this, if Michael Jackson is guilty, that he would probably never be allowed to live at Neverland again because he would have to register as a sex offender, and there is a school directly across the street from Neverland. Under California law, you cannot live, a sex offender cannot live within a quarter mile of a school, so Michael Jackson, when he got out of prison, very long time from now, would have to go elsewhere than Neverland, Shep.
Trace Gallagher, we'll get right back to you. Trace, thanks very much. Arthur Aidala, one of our contributors during all of this, is on set with me. What are these lawyers going through right now?
Well, Mesro's got a job to do. He's got to prepare Michael the best he can. Obviously, Michael's going through hell right now. They're probably on the phone, and he's probably trying to keep him calm. This is what you do. You literally massage someone into just being into a state where they could enter the courtroom, be calm, listen to what's going on. You obviously tell him we're hoping for the best, but you prepare him for the worst. In terms of the prosecutors, you know, their stomach is in butterflies, and they're just hoping that they get the verdict that they want. They put in their lives to this. They put in a lot of effort, a lot of money, years and years and years, and they're just, you know, praying that the outcome is what they want it to be.
Trace and Jim talking out there about count one for our viewers. This is, and how count one, the first one read inside the courtroom, presumably, they don't have to go in order, but they almost always do. Count one, conspiracy to commit the crimes of child abduction, false imprisonment, and extortion. It accuses Michael Jackson of unlawfully controlling, withholding, isolating, concealing, enticing, and threatening the accuser and his family. And Trace and Jim Hammer are making the argument, Arthur Aidala, that as goes that count, could go all of it.
Yeah, well, it's a good indication. It basically is going to indicate whether or not they believed what the accuser said and his mother and the whole kit and caboodle. If they bounce them on that one, then the next one, which is the lewd act upon a child, that's another one where it's really the accuser's word against Michael's word, even though he didn't testify. I mean, by going to trial, Michael's saying, I didn't do it. So if he gets not guilty of those first two, there's a good shot that they're going to code not guilty on all of them, except if they want to give him like a slap on the wrist, except if they want to give the judge the ability to give him some sort of treatment, probation, et cetera, et cetera.
Trace Gallagher back out in Santa Maria. Trace, first of all, it's hard to believe we've even made it to this point, but you have to wonder if there wasn't some sort of split in there all along that may have caused somewhat of a delay.
It's possible, Shepard, because you have to remember the nature of this case. If we look at the family and there are jurors in there who say, okay, you know what, this family's got reasonable doubt written all over them, then you've got an argument in there. I'm not going to send a man to prison for 18 years based on the testimony of this family. There is also considered the 1108 evidence. That is the prior bad acts, the alleged molestation from 93 and 94. The jury was allowed to consider those acts. So there could be jurors in there saying, you know what, maybe this family was not credible, but I am not going to free Michael Jackson because I believe he was a pedophile in 1993. He's a pedophile now, and if we release him, he'll be a pedophile again. That could be the debate going on. The 1108 evidence, the prior acts, was really compelling. I mean, some say without that, the prosecution had a very weak case. With that, the prosecution has a very strong case. So what's going on inside the jury room could very well be a conviction of sins of the present, or do we convict him on sins of the past? And clearly, when you have this kind of debate, we talked this weekend to the Peterson jurors, a couple of them, who said, you know, debate at times gets furious. Everybody wants to do what's right. Every juror knows that when they walk out of there, the eyes of the world will be on them. They want to make the right decision for their families and their friends and the world. There's a lot of pressure on these people to make the right decision, Shep, and it cannot be easy.
No doubt about that. Trace Gallagher, thanks. Right back to you in a moment. For viewers who just may be joining us, it's 1:45 on the west coast of the United States, and there is a verdict in the Michael Jackson child molestation trial. Already, Michael Jackson's fate is sealed. He has either been found guilty or not guilty or some combination of the above. Already it has been decided. what happens to Michael Jackson 1 hour from now, whether his arms will be shackled and he'll be taken off to prison, or he'll be released to come to the microphones to talk to all of us. No matter what happens, just about 45 minutes from now, when that verdict is announced, there will certainly be much debating to be done. To that end, Arthur Aidala and Drew Findling, our partners in the coverage of this for the better part of 2 months, joining us now. Drew Findling, for viewers who may be new to us this afternoon, has made the argument loudly and cogently, I might add, that Michael Jackson is a victim here, that Michael Jackson is the victim of bloodsuckers, and that Michael Jackson is not guilty. Arthur Aidala takes the more popular other view, at least it would seem in the active public discourse. Arthur, Drew, I'm sorry, your point in a nutshell on arriving at the conclusion that Michael Jackson did nothing wrong is what?
My point is that Michael Jackson did the Bashir special. At the conclusion of the Bashir special, when he made his comments, it was this young child that he held his hand. It was this young child that had his head on Michael's shoulder. It was this young child that called him Daddy Michael. And it was this young child that they had to select for damage control. And of all the coincidences of the world, that Michael Jackson selects this recovery time to finally molest this kid who happens to come from a family that has pursued questionable litigation against JCPenney, that is involved in welfare fraud, a family that is just surrounded by suspicion and really is grifters when all's said and done. And now the question is not if he's going to be convicted of molesting this young man, but whether or not he's going to be convicted, as the last guest said, of 1993. And that would be the biggest fear that I'd have as defense counsel.
Arthur?
Basically, for over a decade and 2 years, these accusations have been flying. And you know what? If there wasn't for bad luck, Michael Jackson wouldn't have any luck at all. There's all these boys, men, that keep coming out. Came out through the whole course of the trial. Besides the accusee here, the judge allowed, because he heard and he thought that it was important enough for the jurors to take into account what other young men say happened in Michael Jackson's bedroom. It kept coming back and back. And one thing that we never really explored, but I think that jurors must have taken into account, is alcohol and the role that alcohol played in here, because Michael Jackson probably is a very sick man, and he was able to repress that sickness until all the wine came out. And you know, there's a saying, when the spirits come in, the truth comes out, and he wasn't able to hold back his sickness and his illness, and he molested at least 3 or 4 of these boys. And I think the jurors, many of whom were parents and grandparents, found that and felt that was true, and I think they're going to convict him.
A lot on the line here for attorneys on both sides. The defense lawyers said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm going to make you a number of promises. A number of those promises were, opinion aside, a number of those promises did not come through. A live look now at the gates of the Neverland Ranch, where at least of late familiar bunting is on the gates, reminiscent of playoff time in Major League Baseball. The bunting is out, yet no one has come through that door. You remember that gate. You remember that the reason given for this hour of notice was so that Michael Jackson and his team could get from, presumably, Neverland Ranch to the courthouse. The gates of said courthouse have not yet opened, though we're 12 minutes into the announcement that there is a verdict. How far away is the Neverland Ranch? How long may it take to get there? Is Michael Jackson in there? Trace Gallagher's with our legal analyst Jim Hammer out of the courthouse. Trace?
You know what, Shep? We got our eyes on that gate as well. Let me just give you a rundown of how far it is from the courthouse. Neverland is in Los Olivos, which is about 34 miles from there to here. If Michael Jackson left right now, just for everybody's timeline's sake, it is about 12 minutes to 1 o'clock here in the West. The verdict, we're told, will be read at 1:30. Neverland to here is about a 35 to 38-minute ride. He's cutting it very close. Now, I just want to offer this caveat. The judge did say when he laid out these guidelines that he was willing to push the envelope a bit. If Michael Jackson is 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late, the judge will allow that. He's not going to go much past that, but he will allow some leeway there. Now, we will have, of course, ground crews and helicopters following Michael Jackson. It tends to be a very big deal here. We've got our eyes on the gates of Neverland. If we can also put up the crowd gathering outside, it's a very good juxtaposition. You got the crowd on one hand, you got the gates on the other hand. It is the tale of two fences. You've got people who are gathering. It's now getting all over the media, and as this hour progresses, we expect there to be more than 1,000 people out there, some of whom have been here since day one. They have spent their earnings, they have taken jobs here so they can stay here, and if Michael Jackson is convicted, you've got to believe these will not be happy people. I briefly briefly, I just want to bring in Jim Hammer, if I can, real quick. Jim, we have been here since day one. It is really a roller coaster. It's been a toss-up. Your thoughts now?
You know, the trial itself was a roller coaster, and we've talked about that 1108 evidence. It was very powerful. The defense did a very good job of casting doubt on this family, showing the pattern of shaking people down, potentially making up lies in order to get money. The way the case ended, though, I think was the most powerful bit of evidence for the prosecution. That videotape of the boy being interviewed by the sheriff a few months after he left Neverland. I'll tell you, a lot of people in that courtroom were moved and thought it was the authentic account of a boy talking about molestation. I think the most dramatic moment in these verdict forms we're going to read soon is count 1. If the DA wins that, they're going to run the table. I think they won't win it. The next big moment is count 2. If the DA has a good chance of getting a conviction in the cases on that count 2, based upon the young boy in this case telling the sheriffs on that videotape that Jackson molested. That's the count to really, really watch.
We have talked about Michael Jackson's pattern with young boys now for a long time. Michael Jackson has been sleeping with young boys for many years, not just at Neverland, but around the world. Let me play devil's advocate here, Jim. Let's talk about the pattern of the family. This family also has a pattern. The accuser said his mother molested him when he was 5. The mother says the father molested the daughter. The mother says JCPenney security guards molested her. The accuser says Michael Jackson molested him. There is a pattern here for the jurors that is very difficult to overcome.
Trace, this trial was a war of battling patterns. And what you just laid out, frankly, as a former prosecutor, if I had known all of that about the accuser and his family, I might not have charged the case. That's why it all comes down to that video. And I'll tell you, he looks like a really, really frightened young boy. He looks very hesitant. He pauses for 30 seconds at times, not wanting to answer questions about Jackson. Doesn't look like a kid saying, hey, here's what happened, where do I get the money?
Okay, talk to me now. By the way, let me just mention, Shepard, there's an ambulance has just pulled up and is going to be here. Of course, we all know the history of this case. Michael Jackson is frail to begin with. When he weighed in at his arrest in Santa Barbara, he weighed 120 pounds. He's 5'11". I don't know if Michael Jackson could tip the scales now more than 105 pounds. He clearly lost weight during this thing. We can also point out that Michael Jackson was in the hospital no fewer than 4 times, reportedly maybe 5 or 6 times. There was once for the flu, a couple of times for the bad back, one for dehydration. Michael Jackson is a frail individual. Go back to his trial here a while ago, the civil case where Michael Jackson was bitten by a spider on his foot and walked in crutches. You go back further to that, Michael Jackson has a series of health problems, a history of health problems. An ambulance is standing by here in case Michael Jackson is convicted and he faints. He will be taken out on a stretcher, and that will be one vivid picture of Michael Jackson's health.
I say it will. Right back to Trace in just a moment. Still looking there on the right-hand side of your screen, or the right as you look at it, of the Neverland Ranch gates. They haven't opened yet. I mean, Michael Jackson's not required to stay inside there, but we were led to believe that is where he would stay. If he's not there, he hasn't left. I don't know. No movement on the Michael Jackson side, at least. Judge Napolitano is with us. Judge Andrew Napolitano, who is our senior judicial analyst and has been with us through much of this trial as well. Judge Napolitano, what happens if Michael Jackson doesn't show today?
Well, if he doesn't show today and the court takes the verdict and he is convicted, the court will dispatch officers to find him immediately. If he doesn't show today and he's acquitted, he's sort of thumbing his nose at the system, but he's free to go. It would be highly unlikely for Jackson not to show because he doesn't know any more than either of us. He knows whether or not he's guilty, but he doesn't know what the jury found.
Judge, you've studied the proceedings within this trial at length. Do you see a place where, should there be a conviction here, obviously there's an automatic appeal on such an instance, but if there is a conviction here, that there's a place where the defense team might go, this judge is where you screwed up, this appellate court is where we're going to attack this?
Absolutely. I would argue, if I were defense counsel, and I would take these arguments very seriously if I were the appellate court, that playing that tape, the tape of the boy speaking to the police, which was the first time the police say he told them of this. Playing that tape against Michael denied him his constitutional rights to confront and cross-examine witnesses, because you can't cross-examine a tape. I would also argue that the use of the evidence of the prior bad acts, the cases that he settled, the allegations that never matured even into civil cases, much less criminal cases, irretrievably prejudiced the jury against him. That, I think, is the defendant's strongest arguments on appeal. What he cannot argue on appeal is that the witnesses against him were not believable. That is a jury function which appellate judges are loath to interfere with and reverse, except in the most extreme of circumstances.
Drew Findling, the defense counsel who's been with us throughout much of this. Drew Findling, is it your sense that that's an avenue you'd take? And if so, is there another?
No, I would definitely agree with the judge that the way to go in the event of an appeal is to attack the 1993 case. And as the judge knows, not all judges would have made that decision. There are plenty of judges in California and throughout the country that take the position, try the case, prosecute somebody, try to take them their freedom on the facts of this particular case. Don't go on some past allegation that, as the judge said, didn't even raise itself to the level of a civil case, let alone a criminal case. And quite honestly, I thought that it was a less than courageous decision by this trial judge, Judge Melville, to let 1993 find its way into this case. But for that case, this jury came back last Monday with a not guilty verdict. Now, these lawyers had to defend not only this case, but something that was more than a decade old.
Hey, Drew, let's talk about what 1993 is. Can we be in agreement that 1993 is a grown man buying his way out of something to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, which many believe to be the molestation of yet another child?
1993 is a time when Michael Jackson is actually a lot more successful than he is now. It's a time when Michael Jackson still's got a career that's worth anything and is able to say, you know what, based on his advisors' information and advice, hey, it's not even worth messing with this guy. Here's a check, because $20 million then is like $200 or $20 to somebody else.
So it's just make the pesky fly go away.
That's exactly what it does.
But normally when you do things like that, if you make a fly go away, usually there are more flies on the way because the bait is there. Is this another fly?
Hey, let me tell you, I had the good fortune of representing a great guy named Dennis Rodman. And Dennis has spent his entire life being sued by people, okay? I mean, come on. You know, before I represented Dennis, I was sitting in the front row of basketball.
No crime to wear a wedding dress.
Hey, I was begging the guy to kick me. I was begging Dennis Rodman to kick me so I can sue him, okay? So, I mean, you know, it's another pesky fly, except now the stakes got higher. But that's exactly what it was back then.
Drew Findling, thank you. His counterpart in our debates here has been Arthur Aidala. Arthur, from the prosecution side, is there something that the prosecution failed to do or failed to do as thoroughly as it could have that you would have taken in a different way?
Well, I think the glaring problem there, the biggest mistake they made was Debbie Rowe was calling the wife and expecting her to come out with these bombshells about what an abusive guy he was, or, you know, he was questionable what he would do with young boys, and boy, did that just fall flat on their face. And it wound up being a witness for Michael, and she said what a great man he was, a great father, et cetera, et cetera. So they didn't really screen her very well before they put her on the stand, or prep her very well before they put her on the stand. But what Drew was saying, you know, this judge has been around a long time. He's the presiding judge. He took a lot of things into consideration before he let that evidence come in, and he really found that that was evidence that was going to help the jurors reach the verdict that they needed to reach, whichever way it was. And if they believed those people, they believed them. If they didn't, they didn't. And Drew makes a big deal about the fact that they got millions of dollars, but they got millions of dollars years ago, and why do they have to come out here now and start telling their stories all over again? They're not going to make any more money. Maybe, Drew, it's because they were telling the truth.
Arthur, thank you very much. So, count one. Quickly, I want to get to Lise Wheel. Lise, only about 30 seconds here real quick, and I'll get to you for more. But your sense of things at this moment.
Well, Shep, that they've come back this quickly, actually. I know we've all been sort of sitting around thinking, you know, they're taking a lot of time, but it was really only 7 days of banker hours. Tells me that they were able to get through this 98 pages pretty darn fast. They probably had, you know, some acquiescence from the beginning. The verdict, though, Shep, I couldn't call it for you.
All right, Lise Wheel, there we go. And that is action at the Neverland Ranch. We don't really know where Michael Jackson is because he's a free guy who hasn't been convicted of anything, and he can come and go and do as he pleases. But there's clearly there's activity there at Neverland. And now it is 4 o'clock on the East Coast, 1 p.m. in Southern California, where the jury has reached a verdict in the Michael Jackson child molestation trial. 10 counts total. All of them, when combined, could land Michael Jackson, depending on your reading of things, to somewhere between 18 plus years and 20 or so years behind bars under audio from inside the courtroom. No filter on it from you. You'll hear it directly from the person assigned to read this verdict. Sometimes the court reporter, sometimes the judge, most likely the court reporter just 30 minutes from now. Trace Gallagher's been our point man on coverage out in Santa Maria at the courthouse, and he has new information right now. Trace?
Shepard, if we can go back to the shot of Neverland Gates here, Roger Friedman from FoxNews.com is notifying us that he believes that Michael Jackson was staying last night at the Santa Ynez Inn in Santa Ynez. We do have some aerials here. This will be, by the way, when Michael Jackson's caravan is picked up, this will be one of the shots that will guide him into the courthouse. Timing-wise, 30 minutes left. The Santa Ynez Inn is about 30 minutes from here. It is possible if he left now from there that Michael Jackson could still make it here on time. Now, keep in mind, we just saw a Hummer leave the front gates. That is not what we expect to be the way this will unfold. We think that Michael Jackson will arrive here the same way he has arrived here every single day, which is in a 3 SUV caravan, Michael Jackson always being in the middle SUV. The route from Neverland, you just saw it on the screen, to the courthouse, roughly 34 miles. It is about 7 or 8 miles less from the Santa Ynez Inn here to the courthouse. Michael Jackson has reportedly been everywhere except hiding with Elvis during the past 5 days. He apparently is not at Neverland, because if he is at Neverland, he's going to be late. And the judge is willing to give him some leeway, but the judge is not willing to give him that much leeway. If he left right now, he's not going to be here until 10 minutes after the verdict, and it's going to take him a few minutes to get inside. It's going to take him a few minutes to get set, and that may test the judge's patience. We can tell you, Roger Friedman, FoxNews.com, says Santa Ynez Inn is where Jackson was staying last night. So far, the helicopters have not picked him up. He may be en route. We don't know where Michael is at this point, Shep.
All right, Trace, right back to you when you have a little more. Arthur Idala here with us. Arthur, this has to be one of the most difficult. Imagine how much the pressure has been building through all of this. This man, Michael Jackson, who by almost all accounts is not completely in touch with his own reality. Michael Jackson has been sitting there seeing this flood of information about his own life come to him. And now, all of a sudden, he's about to find out whether the jury believes his side or the other.
And I would not
and he must be freaking.
I would not be shocked if his handlers or people are having a difficult time getting him to the courthouse. I've been involved in 2 cases, one more recently, where as the opposing attorney was very confident that he had a good verdict for his client, and during the break, during this period that we're in right now, he disappeared. The defendant disappeared, and he's yet to be found. He was found guilty. He was sentenced in absentia, and nobody knows where he is. I can imagine Michael being absolutely terrified and knowing that the biggest decision of his life is about to be handed down any second, and it's not out of the realm of possibilities where he's just for refusing to leave. It's not. It wouldn't be something that is unheard of.
Of course, the truth is we don't know exactly what's going on. What we do know is these 3 SUVs are there. Trace, I guess that's in the loop-de-loo outside the Neverland Ranch main house there, right? Actually, we can't hear. So let's Trace start over. We missed the beginning. Sorry.
Okay, Shepard, yeah, that is in the circular driveway of Neverland. We just saw someone get in the middle. We would suspect that would be Michael Jackson, and of course he would have the cortege of in front and behind. Now, again, Michael Jackson is got to be running very scared right now, but by all clocks, this is going to take at least the next 35 minutes for them to get here. So if it's 5 minutes after 1 o'clock in the West right now, Michael Jackson is not going to be here until at least 40 minutes before 2 o'clock. The judge said the verdict would be read at 1:30. Well, that clearly is not going to happen now. This, we do believe, is the caravan now with Michael Jackson. Roger Friedman notwithstanding, we're just saying we believe now that this caravan, though we're not convinced about this, we believe this is the Michael Jackson caravan, and they will continue to follow him. But if he doesn't leave soon, Shep, it's not going to be anywhere near the 1:30 deadline.
Judge, let's bring in Judge Andrew Napolitano, our chief judicial analyst. Judge Napolitano, there is the possibility, and it's always existed, that Michael Jackson would not be on time. We remember Pajamas Day, and the judge was very serious about Michael Jackson's tardiness that day, and he almost got himself into a world of hurt. What if he is late or is a no-show? What does this judge do?
Well, I mean, this judge has been very strict on this particular area of Michael Jackson's behavior, as you pointed out, Shep. If he's a couple of minutes away, obviously the judge is going to wait. If he's on his way and is 15 or 20 minutes away, the judge is going to wait. But if he has absconded, and if no one knows where he is, and if no information is coming into the judge from Jackson's lawyers or any other source, the bail will be seized, which in this case I believe is $3 million. It's probably in the form of an insurance policy. The insurance policy holder, the carrier, will pay the $3 million and then go after Jackson's house. That's not going to happen overnight. But more importantly, the entire law enforcement apparatus of the state of California will be dispatched to find him and bring him to the courthouse.
Lise Wheel is in our newsroom. Lise, we're talking, the allegations are here, in fact, proven, I believe, and admitted by both sides, among other things, is that Michael Jackson, for 365 days, while on a world tour, did in fact sleep in the same bed as a little boy who was about the same age as the age of this person at the time of that the allegations exist. Had Michael Jackson been sleeping with 13-year-old girls for 365 days, would there be quite so much debate?
Well, you'd still have, you know, a statutory rape or a molestation charge pending. But I think it just was made stranger, weirder, if you would, that you're talking about a 46-year-old man sleeping with, you know, 13-year-old boys. That just made it stranger for everybody. But it also goes to the fact that, you know, during this trial, all of this trial, all the emphasis from the defense perspective was on how terrible the mother is and how what about a bunch of grifters, and it's just a kind of a pat down, you know, of Michael Jackson. The problem with that theory, I think, from the defense perspective is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the mother's motives were. Even if she's the worst mother in the world, if he did in fact sleep with this little boy and molest the little boy, then, you know, the mother's behavior has nothing to do with it, Shep. So I have a problem with that defense all along.
The main thing that's unusual about the picture on the right-hand side of your screen, and let's bring that full if we could, the main thing that's unusual about this picture is the fact that there's a camera above. Nothing else really is. That a judge would give a defendant a certain amount of time to get from home, wherever that may be, to the courthouse, wherever that may be, is not out of the ordinary. In fact, it's somewhat the norm. What's out of the ordinary here is the fact that this is Michael Jackson. And if you are a man who is accused of such activities, for instance, let's remember the trail of blood from Rockingham to Bundy. What was his name? Simpson. Yes, that was his name. O.J. Simpson was in jail at the time. He had no choice but to be there on time. If you're a man who's been accused of molesting little boys in a continuing manner almost, at least as the accusation sits, do you take this opportunity to go to the jury and roll your dice, or do you take this opportunity to go elsewhere? We'll find out soon enough. Trace Gallagher and our legal analyst Jim Hammer are on site at the courthouse. Trace?
And by the way, Shepard, is it not just so coincidental that O.J. Simpson was accused of killing his wife and Ron Goldman 11 years ago yesterday, and here we are on that anniversary following another SUV and another celebrity potentially headed to prison for a very long time. We do know that's Michael Jackson, one of those, because we saw the telltale umbrella. We saw the security guards who have been here every day. So yes, Michael Jackson now making his way to the courthouse a lot later than he should have. Almost 10 minutes after 1 o'clock here in the West. Jackson won't be here until at least 45 before the hour. I want to bring Jim Hammer in again real quickly because Jim Hammer is going to go in the courtroom. He's got to get in there because they're going to lock the courtroom down. Jim, who's going to be in the courtroom and what's it going to be like in there, because we've got fans and family?
It's going to be a wild scene. That courtroom is divided into 3 sections, Trace. Up front are a couple of seats set aside for Jackson's family and the prosecution team. Behind that, the media, about 50 of us sitting in the court. And then the back of the courtroom, 40 or 50 Michael Jackson fans who've camped out every morning at 4 and 5 o'clock to get lottery tickets into there. There's been one other time during this trial when there was a loud outburst when they mockingly laughed at one of the prior accusers in this case. If Jackson is convicted, I'll tell you, it's going to be a riot in there.
And as you see, these are fans lining the road, Shepard. They were going to do, this is down Los Olivos, the street that goes into Los Olivos. The fans said they would do that. They wanted to have fans go all the way down until you get to the interstate. Apparently not enough fans joined hands, or not enough fans joined in to be able to make that human chain. Back to Jim real quickly here. Jim, as we watch this caravan go by, you're about to go in the courthouse. If the Jackson family is around and Michael Jackson is convicted, his mother has been here every day. You have watched her. Is she emotionally strong enough to handle this?
You know, I have sat behind her literally 3 feet away from her during this trial. There have been some of the most graphic, horrible images a mother could ever see, pictures of Jackson's pornography, boy after boy testifying about Jackson having molested them. I fully expect Jackson, who's barely made it through this trial, frankly, who almost didn't get here on pajama party day, that if he is convicted, that his mother may very well collapse in the court. But again, 40 or 50 Jackson fans in the back of that courtroom, I'll tell you, they will scream out if Jackson's convicted of anything in this trial.
For those of us on the East Coast, or our television viewers on the East Coast, let me give you an idea of exactly where we are. We are very close to Santa Barbara, which about 65, 70 miles north of Santa Barbara. We are about 100 miles south of Hearst Castle. Michael Jackson's caravan now is passing Los Olivos. Now, for anybody who saw the movie Sideways, Los Olivos was the base for that movie. They went up there in the Central California wine country and they had a buddy trip. This is the area that we're talking about. Michael Jackson will make his way down the 154 onto Interstate 101, where he'll go 25 miles north before getting off at Santa Maria. Santa Maria is between Santa Barbara and Pismo Beach. It is not on the coast. It is a very hot ranchers, farmers town. It has got a lot of conservative people here, which a lot of people have said this is a conservative jury, and it is not the jury that Michael Jackson wants. No African Americans, 4 Hispanics, 1 Asian, the remainder Caucasians, 8 parents, 1 single. I'm sorry, Jim.
That's the big X factor in this case. This town is so small, Trace, that literally when we go to the gym after court, we can run into jurors who were on the panel and originally picked. One of my colleagues, Laura Engel, actually ran into one of the jurors from this panel at a local restaurant. So the fact that it is such a small community, everybody knows everybody, that's weighed very heavily over these deliberations, I think, Trace.
Shepard, from blue pajamas to the Santa Maria courthouse on this day as we await the fate of Michael Jackson, and we watch as Jackson's caravan makes its way. The fans are chanting. The tension is high. 2,200 journalists from 34 countries. When that verdict is read, it is the shot heard round the world, Shep.
Trace Gallagher live there. Trace, let's hear from Adam Housley while we continue to watch this caravan. Let's hear from Adam Housley, who was outside the gates of Neverland as the trucks came out. Adam?
Shepard, they had the first truck come out, an H2, which is a Hummer, as Trace talked about. A burgundy Hummer came out 15 minutes ago, came flying out of the gates. Then they did something that's not normal. We've been sitting out here for roughly 7 days. They left those gates open behind me for about 5 minutes as that caravan slowly made its way from Neverland Ranch. There are 4 black SUVs as opposed to the normal 3. I can tell you Michael Jackson is not in the first. He is not in the 4th because you could see through the windows as they came out. So he's likely in the 2nd or 3rd, which is about normal when he does come to the courthouse. They're heading very slowly down this road, which is called Figueroa Mountain Road. It's about 5 miles till they get to the 154. Then they head west about 2 or 3 miles. That's when they hit the 101 freeway. That's when they head north towards where Trace is located in Santa Maria. And the most likely route takes them down Main Street. What they've been doing at that point at Main Street is when the police escort's been picking them up and following them into the courthouse. We do not know if a police escort will come sooner. But Shepard, the one interesting thing to note too over the last few days, you know, you mentioned Roger Freeman has reported that he was staying at a different hotel. Well, there's been all sorts of rumors over the last 3 or 4 days to where Michael Jackson was, where he was going, where he was staying. The trucks have been coming in and out of this gate throughout the day, every day, racing in and out, and once in a while the caravan would come almost like they were toying with the fans and the media. So at this point, as that caravan heads north, we've seen fans get in their cars and also head north to the 101 and eventually to the courthouse.